The Seattle Mariners jumped out to a 5-0 lead against the Texas Rangers, and on top of that, the Twins lost their doubleheader and the Royals lost, giving the Mariners a chance to gain serious ground in the wild card. And then the Mariners completely blew it, shrinking their chances for the playoffs. So yeah, as you know, the Seattle Mariners completely just blew it in just humiliating fashion. They had a 5-0 lead against the Texas Rangers, which, by the way, they're not even competing for the playoffs anymore. They had just been eliminated out of playoff contention this weekend, and they won't even finish 500. Now, before I explain my painful opinions from this game and series, here's a word from our sponsor, SeatGeek. SeatGeek is a mobile ticketing app for sporting events, concerts, and other events. They make the buying experience easier by the app ranking each ticket from 0 to 10 to see if you are getting a good deal, and you can see exactly where you are sitting. I regularly use that app, and I have had nothing but a fantastic experience with SeatGeek. Use my promo code RoofTopSports to get $20 off of your first purchase. Link to the code, app, and website will be in the description, so take advantage, and thank you. And thank you very much for watching that quick 30-second ad. And to help me further for this channel, hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, and even donate to this channel through the YouTube Super Chat. Any of those would help this channel with the algorithm and the growth of this channel. Now let's get into it. Now first, let me summarize. So the Mariners had won their first 2 games against the Texas Rangers. Game 1 in very impressive fashion. Game 2 also kind of in impressive fashion. Victor Robles was just kicking absolute butt with his amazing base running, where he kind of pulled that 95 Kenny Lofton against the Seattle Mariners from the 95 ALCS. Why am I even talking about that? I don't know, just to make things painful. And then, yep, they had won their first 2 games of the series. They were inching close to the wild card. And then Sunday, Mariners were up 5-0 once again against the Texas Rangers, and Cal Raleigh hit that home run. He's been, other than all the strikeouts and his low batting average, he has certainly somewhat made up for it with his 31 bombs. And then Victor Robles did it again, where he nearly got picked off and scored home anyway. So it looked like the Mariners were just on track, because you just had the Kansas City Royals lose, the Twins lost in a doubleheader, and other than the fact that Tigers won, Mariners still had a fantastic opportunity to pick up ground on this wild card going into the Houston series, because we know that's not going to be difficult. Brian Wu was pitching absolutely well, and then Brian Wu gave up 4 runs, and then JT Chargois gave up a game-tying home run to make it 5-5. Then the Mariners failed to score for the rest of the game, including a ridiculous Julio Rodriguez strikeout where he had a chance to break the tie. Like, at this point, we were just expecting him to hit a home run, considering that he had hit 3 home runs in those 2 games, especially making up for the fact that he had a horrible base running moment against the New York Yankees, where he was met with insane amount of criticism, which was also met with criticism from other Mariners fans. And then he strikes out. As if I already said that. Then we go into the bottom of the 9th inning, and this is where pretty much, at that point, I pretty much lost hope for this, because when you have Andres Munoz coming in a non-save situation, or when the game is tied, the chances of the Mariners winning at that point, it just feels slim to none. Andres Munoz gives up a hit. And then, or was it a hit or a walk, or on base, doesn't really matter. And then Munoz gave up the game-winning hit. And then Mariners, because of that, they will remain 2 games out of the wild card. And I should double-check that, because I don't want to sound like a complete idiot. But I will check that right now. Yep, they are 2 games back from the wild card. Right now, the wild card is owned by Baltimore, which they pretty much have it clinched at this point. I mean, they would have to try really hard to completely blow it. They have a 4-game lead on that wild card. Then Detroit Tigers, who pretty much just came out of nowhere throughout the entire season. And then Kansas City, They have the wild card. And right now, Minnesota is behind a game in the wild card. And then the Seattle Mariners are just 2 games back. Now, how do I really feel about this? Frankly, it's frustrating. Like, even with Dan Wilson and his leading of ways, it's not like the Mariners played any better. It's just that they got into some luck where the other teams had completely melted down. Like, we saw Kansas City starting to have a meltdown. Minnesota's having a meltdown. I guess you can even say Baltimore. They were at least somewhat hanging around in the division, and now the Yankees have pretty much have it at this point. And yes, the Mariners have scored. They've been hitting a lot better. But somehow on the road, the pitching just completely disappears. Like, look at Brian Wu. He had a 5-0 lead and then just completely blew it, which was very uncharacteristic. And around that time when he was giving up those 4 runs, I was wondering, like, should the Mariners start going into the bullpen? But it's not like they really could, because they really did burn through their arms through the Saturday game where they had to put in Troy Taylor and Colin Snyder in those situations, which is why the bullpen was kind of thinned out today, where you were pretty much down to JT Chargois, which he's been used quite a bit, and he hasn't been exactly clutch. So that was pretty frustrating. And had the Mariners won this game, they would have been a lot closer in that wild card, much closer than that 2-game deficit, which would have given you a little bit of cushion going into the Houston series, which that's not going to be easy. And going into the Houston series, you got Bryce Miller against Hunter Brown. I'm pretty sure that's his name. Yep, Hunter Brown. And then on the 24th, where they're playing, of course, the Houston Astros, got Logan Gilbert against Framber Valdez. That is not going to be easy. You cannot guarantee a victory on that either. Logan Gilbert, who's kind of been struggling in the second half, and run support has been very lacking. And on top of that, you got Framber Valdez, who's been arguably the best pitcher in the rotation. And then on the 25th, you got Yusei Kikuchi against George Kirby. So to think that if you think the Mariners are even going to even have a chance to sweep the Houston Astros, you best leave that in bed. Like, at this point, I think the best game for the Mariners that they can possibly win is Monday against Hunter Brown, who seems to be the inferior out of the 3, except especially with Yusei Kikuchi. He's been absolutely on fire since he has joined the Houston Astros off of that trade. And of course, Framber Valdez, he's been having an unbelievable season himself. So all these things where Mariners really had been breaking ranks in September. Like, let me go back to all those games where Mariners really should have won. And had they won those games, there would have been a much better cushion and opportunity to actually make the playoffs. Like, let's go into the Yankees game, which was on Wednesday. Julio Rodriguez with his base running blunder, and Randy Arozarena with his inability to even hold on to a bat. Which, by the way, Randy Arozarena has really gotten on my nerves. Like, he really proves that he could be one of the best players in baseball when he wants to be. But most of the time, he just looks freaking lost. Then the other Yankees game, there's nothing much they could have done about that. Going back into last week, where I guess the Mariners, they took 3 of 4 from Texas, and they really should have won that game against Texas. So I guess I'll go back to that. And this is just going back to September alone. The Padres game, they definitely should have won that game. There was a lot of blunders on that one. And then some of those Oakland games as well that happened in that early part of September, where they really should have won. They should have won at least one more game from that Oakland series. And boy, Mariners really had blown a lot of chances, even in September, even with Dan Wilson. Now, does it get any better? Like, even if the Mariners like somehow find a way to win 2 out of 3 or sweep Houston, which unfortunately even 2 out of 3 doesn't seem likely. But then when you go into the opponents of each team, first let's start with the Minnesota Twins, which you're not going to like this at all, unlike with their schedule. Like, I don't think I really like it, but here's the thing. At home, they're going to be playing the Marlins for a 3-game set. And then they will close it out against Baltimore, which I'm pretty sure, I don't even know if Baltimore really has much to play for. I mean, they're probably not going to get that division, and they're probably going to be hanging around with that first spot. So maybe you'll play against a Baltimore team that may not really have much of incentive to win anyway, depending how they play in the previous series before they play the Twins. So that's the Minnesota Twins. They actually have a pretty favorable schedule to gain ground on the wild card. Now let's go to the Royals and let's see how their schedule is after they had just lost to San Francisco. And they actually got swept by San Francisco. But they'll be playing at the Nationals. And now it makes me wonder how the Nationals are doing. Wonder how those Washington Nationals are doing. They're pretty much out of it. They're 69 and 87, so they don't really have much to play for either. So Kansas City could get away with that series. And then they'll be playing the Atlanta Braves, where how are the Braves doing? They're at 85 and 71. And in terms of the wild card, which I should check that myself as well, for the Atlanta Braves at least, let's take a look at it. So the Braves, they are still fighting for a playoff spot, so maybe that could be advantageous for the Mariners, for the Royals, for them to maybe lose games, and maybe the Mariners can pick up on that. But here's the thing, they have to at least take 2 out of 3, if not basically sweep them. I'm going to say, you have to sweep the Astros if you want to even have a speck of a chance to even make the playoffs. And now let's go to the Tigers. Out of all teams, the Tigers. And makes you wonder, how in the world did they even get to where they are? Because I want to take a look at the Tigers, not just their schedule, but I want to look at where exactly they were in August by the time where the Mariners were supposed to beat them when they were considered not a good team. They were hanging around like on the end of July, 52 and 57. And even at the end of August at one point, they were still dangling at 65 and 66. And all of a sudden, September, they have had a red hot month. Now they're 8 games above 500. And their schedule is they're going to be hosting against the Tampa Bay Rays, where their season's pretty much out of reach at that point. And then they're playing Chicago, where even their social media team is making a jokesters of tweets themselves saying like, yeah, we just didn't score enough runs if you're wondering how the White Sox did. And yes, let me check and see if that is correct about the Chicago White Sox and how they did about their tweeting. Yeah, they're pretty much making jokester tweets at this point. Final can be found on the app. Yeah, something like that. So they're going to be going up against a team that's not even taking it seriously, which is kind of funny and unfortunately sad. Oh, boy. So, yep. Those 3 teams have pretty favorable schedules, while you have the Mariners playing against the Astros and the Oakland A's, which, by the way, they have struggled against the Oakland A's for whatever stupid reason. So it's going to be tough. Mariners are going to have to find a way to squeak out anything out of the Houston Astros. If anything, they're going to have to sweep them. And before I get into the last part of the show, here's a word from our sponsor, SoFi Bank. SoFi is an online bank and a personal financing company offering financial diverse products. They hold the naming rights to the home of the Los Angeles Rams and the Los Angeles Chargers, named SoFi Stadium. They offer amazing checking and savings accounts where you can get up to 4.6% on savings accounts. There are no monthly fees to maintain the accounts, and they have over 55,000 no-fee ATMs around the United States. You even have access to a budgeting program, stock trading, and insurance programs. Join SoFi and get $25 for joining and or $25 for opening a stock trading account. Links are available in the description. And thank you. And lastly, I am not a financial advisor, so either find a professional financial advisor or go with your own gut. Yep, and if you would like to get some more information, check it out on the description where the links will be available for SoFi Bank if you are interested in opening a bank account, or even a stock account. Anyway, so last part of this, and I've been dealing with this for the entire season, and if you guys want to call me saying that I'm playing the victim, fine, whatever. Now, the thing that bothers me the most is we see a lot of Mariner fans out there, especially on Twitter, where they're going out of their way to defend incompetence. Like Julio Rodriguez, for example, when he had that horrible base running moment against the Yankees, a lot of Mariner fans really did go after him, saying that he was a fool, he was incompetent. And then some other Mariner fans, they twisted it as like hate speech or racist or whatever it was. Now, the problem I have with those is first of all, I didn't have a problem with the criticisms that Julio Rodriguez was getting. He's one of the best. He's supposed to be one of the best players in baseball. The guy talked a really big game when it was during spring training that he was like going for MVP level kind of performance, which didn't really happen until basically the Texas series. And now he can't even run fundamentally, basically. But the thing that bothers me is that Mariner fans, some, for the most part, seem to be very passionate on holding other Mariner fans accountable on how they act, rather than holding the actual team accountable, which really doesn't make sense. And it kind of bothers me when you have Mariner fans basically calling other Mariner fans bandwagons. Now you have Mariner fans going up against each other. People are playing victims. People are attacking each other. The point is, we should all come together and get along and first of all, respect everyone's opinions. Like, that's what my YouTube channel is about. Like, in the chat column on my live shows or on the comments, you're free to say whatever you want. I am not going to block you for it. Even if you say something like Julio he did the right thing by running terribly. Yeah, you can even say that too. And now, I mean, the only thing I'd ask from you is like, elaborate on it. I'd like to see your explanation so I can either get maybe a laugh out of it, or if I can get okay, I see where you're coming from. But either way, I'm not going to block you. But bottom line, I just really do think that Mariner fans need to grow up, especially some that seem to be so obsessed of criticizing other Mariner fans on how they are being fans. I think they should just let them have it. Just let them express how they want to express. Like, the last thing I would ever want to do is on this channel is just saying everything that everyone wants to hear, which of course I've been criticized on the Twitter X about. Some people say I have bad takes. People say that I'm not a true fan. People say I say ridiculous things. Fine. Whatever. I get it. You don't like my opinions. I get it. But it gets to a point where people just take it too personally, or people are just making it so personal and just take it so far to the point that they try to connect dots with other unrelated things that are unrelated to sports. And now you have some people saying that people got to go soul searching all over just certain opinions. And I think it just gets out of hand. And the thing I believe is, unfortunately, it seems that some Mariner fans are more passionate on holding other Mariner fans accountable on their opinions and how they go about it, rather than hold the team accountable. Hold the organization accountable. Because after this season, whether the Mariners make the playoffs or not, Jerry Dipoto is still going to be running the show going into 2025 and maybe even beyond, which I think is the wrong move. I really think that he really should be fired. And yes, I get it. He's really built the farm system to blah, 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 whatever. But the thing is, when it comes to free agency and trades, he's about 50-50, maybe more like 30-70 or 40-60. And the free agency, he's absolutely atrocious. Like, the only quality players that he ever got in free agency was what? Robbie Ray, if I can remember. That's basically all I can remember, and maybe a bunch of free agent signings, really small ones like Paul Sewald, Kendall Graveman. But aside from that, it's really hard to name what kind of a successful free agent that he has actually drawn over. Most of his successful moves were more like the farm system development and the trading. But even then, some of the trades that he has made has been very questionable. So that's why I think going forward, I really think he shouldn't be part of this organization going forward. And at this point, Dan Wilson, as much as I loved Dan Wilson, respectable catcher, great catcher for the Seattle Mariners, great guy, been part of this organization for years, heavily engaged with the organization. But I don't think that he should be the permanent manager going forward. I think they should have given the job to him on an interim basis, but instead they hired him as a permanent manager going forward, especially with possible options that the Mariners can go for manager. Like, I think he really should go through the interview process after this season, but it doesn't really matter anyway, since I think ownership really stepped in and really made him the manager. So yeah, those were like the few points that I really wanted to talk about. Mariners fandom and the management. But I know I'm a little bit off the rails about it, but when you have the Mariners losing like exactly the way they did, gave up a 5-run lead, where if you went to the casino, I'm pretty sure that if you bet like $10, you probably make like 100 off of that. On the Texas Rangers, that's if you bet on them. So the other thing too is the other reason why fans are acting like extremely emotional. Maybe some fools were giving those quote death threats to Mitch Garver, and I guess the same fans said really bad things to Julio Rodriguez. It's because it's been painful watching this season. We watched this team from 2022 go all the way from a possible World Series contender to a fringe playoff contender. Or will they even make the playoffs? Or I don't know. But like, emotion is a thing, and that's why people say the ridiculous things. And when it's the Mariners, out of all teams that blow like completely big leads, they blew a 10-game lead in the division. They've blown several big leads in the games, like that Kansas City game. They gave up like they blew a 7-0 deficit, or was it 9-0 deficit? Or a lead. And then they blew this 5-0 lead. So when you have all these weird things going around, of course you're going to expect fans to say crazy, stupid things that get other Mariner fans to completely knee-jerk about it and then jump to the conclusion saying, oh, you're a bandwagon fan. Oh, you're this. Oh, you're that. Oh, you're not a true fan. Go cheer for someone else. You know, at this point, I think the Mariners organization and even those critical fans should even be appreciative that those fans are even paying attention by complaining about them. Because here's the thing. If they weren't really true fans, including myself, none of us would be paying attention. We wouldn't be giving them attention. We'd just be making jokes about them once in a while. That's the only attention that they would get. But we should be thankful that we got fans that do care. Now, do some of them take it too far? Of course they do. No one should be sending death threats to people like Mitch Garver. No one should say like slurs or whatever it was, if that was even true, by the way. People should be allowed to fan however they want to fan. And I know I just went from all the way from Mariners playoff chances all the way to Mariners fandom, but I just had to do it because my Twitter was just completely blowing up about it. I was getting criticized. I was criticizing the criticizee, or whatever you want to say, and like how other fans should be fanning or whatever it is. But the bottom line is, we're all Mariners fans. We want them to win a World Series, well, let alone at least make the playoffs. So maybe we should all get along and just accept everyone's opinions. Because here's the thing. If everyone had the same exact opinion, like even if people had the same exact opinion on Mariners ownership, if I wanted to go that far, then life would be boring. Like sometimes you want people that disagree because that's what makes it fun. It's what, I guess it's good for Elon Musk. It jacks up his twittering engagement. You know what? I'll accept it too. I accept the engagement that I get, even though sometimes it is ridiculous when people say that I have really bad takes, which that's fair to say, but then of course fans make it all personal. But I think I'm just going, I could go on and on about this, but I'm just going to end it right here. And hopefully Mariners can take care of business against the Houston Astros, because they're going to have to, because Hunter Brown, Framber Valdez, and Yusei Kikuchi are not going to be easy. And don't forget, Hector Neris is going to have an opportunity to hit against Julio. And if I'm Julio, use this as an opportunity where if you are hitting against the Hector Neris, who, by the way, called you Use that as motivation to get that revenge, sweet revenge, and throw it back in his face. And you shut them down. Anyways, that's going to do it for me. I just want to say thank you very much for following me, watching this show, and to support it any further, donate to this channel, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and painfully saying, go Mariners.